No idea what's coming.
Somebody please get this man a gun.
You stabbed the devil in the back. To him, this isn't vengeance. This is justice.
Trigger finger in the eye, put a little dirt on him.
You working? Wait, so whoever comes, I'll kill them.
Welcome back to the Supercast. I'm your host, the Superfosh, and as always joined by my buddy and co-host Steve Z here on the episode where we'll be talking about John Wick Chapter 2. But before we get into that, Steve Z, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Pretty good. And I should add that we might be doing 3 if everything goes well. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, things are going well. We just got back from Chicago. We've been meaning to record this episode for a couple weeks, but things keep happening. A lot of stuff with my house, which I was just talking to Superfosh about, and I'm not going to bore you guys with that stuff. But yeah, it's been good. I've been watching a lot of movies and taking in some cool stuff. And I actually want to tell you about this one place I visited pretty recently. Yeah, so in Atlanta, which as you guys probably may or may not know, I live in the Atlanta suburb area. So I learned about this place about a year ago. It's called Videodrome, and is one of the last operating video rental stores in the U.S.
Wow.
And I gotta tell you guys, this was a place that I saw a video on YouTube about, and I was like, this place is awesome. I'm gonna go visit there. Guess what? I didn't visit there for about another year and a half after watching that video. But it lived up to the hype. That's the thing. Is I walked in. At the time, there was only one other customer there. They were talking. The owner and his co-worker were talking to that guy. I just walked in, nonchalant, and then also the owner comes over, start talking to me because I was looking at the HK section. He's like, "Oh, so you like Hong Kong cinema?" I'm like, "Dude, I love it." So we just got into this conversation about 10 minutes about HK cinema. And he's like, "Yeah, you know, City on Fire is coming out 4K. I'm probably going to show the 35 millimeter over at their local theater. So if you want to be a part of that, just come over." And I'm like, awesome. So it was so cool. But this video store, like I said, it has a whole section of HK cinema, but it has everything. Like one half of the store is basically organized by decades and countries. And the other section is just directors. Like imagine you want to go find the Scorsese section. It's got every Scorsese film. It's got every single De Palma film, whatever you want to watch.
Dang.
And it's just great because you can rent pretty much any Blu-ray, DVD, or 4K there for $5. I mean, he's just like, I don't want to think about pricing too much. It's just $5.
Yeah.
Get the rental for a week.
Ooh,
so
nice.
Pretty awesome.
That is cool. Yeah. And there's probably people out there that don't even know about video rental stores just because they're so obsolete now with streaming and all that kind of stuff. But and this is going to age us a little bit, but that's what we did for many years when we want to watch a film at home. We lived in a town called Colin, Alabama, growing up together, and we had this little local store called Video Express. And I know Steve spent many hours, as did I, in there.
It was a highlight of Friday afternoons. Just head over to Video Express. Spend about 30 minutes looking through the movies.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think that, you know, I do miss that. That is kind of a thing that you just don't get to do as often now, but apparently you did. So that's awesome, man.
It's a little bit of an inconvenience, but at the same time,
I'm sure
it's really nice to just. I mean, it's better than just scrolling through the menus forever.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens to some people. They just get stuck in this sort of death loop of looking through what should I watch,
Yeah.
And it's much more fun just looking at the different movie cases and just like, hey, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point where if I'm gonna watch something on streaming, I already know what I want to watch. Because otherwise, I will start scrolling, and then you're just like, I don't really watch anything, and you kind of talk yourself out of it. So what I have to do is just be like, okay, I want to watch this, and I put it on, and then I'm good to go. Because if I don't, and I just start scrolling, I just get uninterested in watching anything. I'm sure you've had that experience too.
Yeah, definitely. I think we have a similar approach when it comes to that.
Yep, exactly.
What have you been up to?
Dude, I am replaying some of my favorite video game series, and that is the Uncharted series. Of course, Nathan Drake. I love those games. I actually played the third one on Xbox many years ago. Was the first one I ever played. And so a couple years ago, I got on PS4. I got the original 3 in the little in the pack, you know. And I beat the first one, I beat the second one, and I'm restarting the third one. And I'm telling you, man, they're just so much fun. They still hold up really well as far as the graphics and just really good stories, and the characters are awesome. Like, who wouldn't want to go hang out with Nathan Drake and Sully? My wife and I were talking about the film that came out recently that I don't want to go into, but I'm like, they don't need to do another film. Like, these games are films in their own right, in my opinion. I mean, they're definitely better than, unfortunately, what we got.
I don't want to get into that too much. I think that was just bad casting.
It's true. But
and writing, directing, all that other stuff.
Yeah. But the video games, it's a lot of fun just to get lost in that world, and you learn a little history. So, yeah, been enjoying that. Otherwise, just chilling, man. Just, trying to stay cool.
I know of your past fondness for the German varietals, but I can wholeheartedly endorse the new breed of Austrians. Glock 34 and 26.
But yeah, man, we are here to talk about John Wick Chapter 2. And if you guys haven't heard our John Wick Chapter 1 video, it is up. So if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to it. Let us know what you think. Give us a like on the video. We'd really appreciate that. We just love doing these and talking about these films. And you want to go ahead and kind of do a little bit of brief recap into the second movie? Like, just talk about the first one a little bit, just to kind of get us all up to speed on everything?
I'm not going to go through everything in the first one, but
okay.
Basically, part one, you're introduced to John Wick. He's this retired hitman. At least that's what we soon learn. And he's just good at what he does. But he's been retired, as I said. He's actually been married for the past few years, but his wife dies, so he basically wants to die too. But instead, he has a dog to take care of. But then Yosef, this stupid Russian guy, shows up and kills the dog and steals John Wick's car and basically brings him out of hiding. And then we have just mayhem, just revenge, mayhem, trying to kill Joseph, but then later the main bad guy and everything. So John Wick's back into the world. He thought he was done, but he's back in there. And that's kind of where part two kind of starts off, is basically it's an epilogue of sorts to part one.
Right.
Because at part one, it kind of ends with him just patching himself up after all of his killing and stuff. And then he finds a dog, and they fall in love. And nice happy ending, because they didn't think there was going to be a sequel at the time. And then they did get a sequel, and they pick up from there, and this time it's John Wick going after the last little loose end from the first one. He's going to get his car back. And we get Yosef's uncle, who is the target of this first thing. And I like how this one starts off. It's just a nice action piece, just out of nowhere. We basically went from jumping in this movie to like it's 100 miles per hour right now. Yeah. And John Wick is on the loose. But here's the thing. It just looks better. Like,
I agree.
You can tell from the very first shot and the very first action sequence that, okay, these guys figured it out. I don't know what they did. They probably watched the first one a few times. Yeah. They got a bigger budget for one thing, and they just let it loose. They start off with a bang.
Yeah, you definitely don't ease into this film for sure. What I love about these films is, and I admit, and I'm sure you can say the same thing, I was a bit hesitant when these came out because they were pushed so heavily. It's like, okay, is this going to be any good? And then you watch the first one, and you're like, okay, yeah, I like this character. It's not based on any prior, game or other movie or anything like that. So this is an all-new adventure. You could probably compare it to a couple of different things, but really it's its own thing. So when I went into the first one, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and I was hooked immediately, like really hooked. So I was really excited to see where the series went for this one, and I'm glad they took the approach of, okay, let's just continue the story pretty much right from the end of the first one, because he's, like you said, he's going to go get his car back. And I like that approach. I think the pacing of these films is really good. There's not a lot of just catching your breath, let's talk for 30 minutes kind of scenes, especially as the movies go on.
Yeah, I would say definitely as they go on. I think this one, it's kind of interesting because, like I said, it starts off with a bang.
Yeah.
and then it kind of slows down because we actually have to start with the story of the second one.
True.
And really until the hour mark, we don't have another action sequence until that point. But then from that point on,
it's all action.
It's just action for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
So that I kind of like that method of storytelling. In the first one, I felt like the action sequences and then the little parts in between were kind of like, these are the parts where you catch your breath. Because the action sequences are just nonstop. They just go, a lot of continuous shots too. And great energy to it. So I agree with you on the pacing. It's just at the same time, it does seem a little spotty. Yeah. In fact, when we get to the end of this, I do want to raise my one critique, but I don't want to get into that yet.
Yeah, so let's go ahead. There will be spoilers. We're not going to spoil everything about the film. I mean, it's been out, so you can watch it. But I do want to kind of give a little overview. You mentioned a bit ago about it kind of picking up from the first one, and he kind of meets some people from his past in this one. You want to kind of talk about that and where this movie goes from where we've been?
Well, that's the thing is he ends that whole thing. He gets his car back. He goes back to his house. He actually paves over his weapons again, puts his gold coins away.
Yep.
And he thinks I'm done. Then he hears a knock at his door.
Yeah.
And this guy, Santino, shows up. And he's like, John Wick, I have a favor to ask you. And John Wick's like, well, I'm retired. I heard you were not retired. I'm just going to say kind of what he was saying, basically. And yeah, Santino shows up with a mark. And that's the big thing about this series is starts off with something very simple, just a revenge tale. And then they just really build up this world. Interesting thing I heard Stileski and Laird talk about was this. They basically looked at this as Lord of the Rings, sort of, with guns and swords and stuff. That they like, let's just make this whole world big.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. Like, and that's where we get the marks. Like, you learn basically the first little exchange here that you got to honor a mark. That's just an unspoken or a spoken rule, I should say.
Yeah. And
you don't kill people on the Continental. So John Wick's like, I guess I got to do this thing. And Santino's like, I want you to kill my sister. And that's just kind of an interesting thing. So what do you think about Ricardo Scaramaccio as Santino and his like appearance here?
Well, it's interesting. You going back to talking about how like bigger the world is, and as far as like the whole order and everything, and the hotel, and they don't really show that in the first one. It seems kind of smallish, kind of intimate a little bit, but in this one, you definitely do see that there's a bigger world. And it fits. I think it makes a lot of sense, everything that they talk about. It's interesting you mentioned the Lord of the Rings thing, and I had never thought about that until you mentioned it. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. But this guy, this Santino guy, I don't know about you, man, but I just want to punch him in the face as soon as I saw him. I'm like, this guy is just, there's no good in him whatsoever. I don't know what his sister's like at first. You don't really know why that's happening, but it's like this guy is just bad news at Bedrock. Great actor, great performance. I really appreciate what he brought. Almost kind of reminded me of like a James Bond type villain a little bit.
Yeah, he's just a straight up turd.
I like that.
I think we get a lot about him just in this first exchange because we learned that basically his dad did not want to put him in charge.
Yeah.
Even though he's the firstborn son in this family, they're like, no, we're going to pass it on your sister because she's a little more even-headed. She's not ridiculous like you.
Right.
And I guess that's what we get this guy. He's kind of ridiculous. He's going to hire somebody else to do his dirty work. Which, one other thing about the expansion of the world, this is one part I said in the first part. Apparently Santino has this mark on John Wick because he helped out John Wick with that impossible task.
Right.
I never want to see that impossible task. I don't ever want to know what it was, what he had to do.
Yeah.
Imagination's so much better. Just imagine what he had to do to go through. But yeah, Santino, he and John Wick knew each other in the past, and now John Wick's gonna have to come out of retirement yet again and go do this. He's gonna have to take his new dog, get him protected and everything. But this is where we get introduced to the High Table.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like this organization that governs all this. That they're kind of like, I guess,
the board of directors.
Yeah, they're like parallel to world governments, I guess.
Yeah.
Multinational organization of assassins, and I don't know what else they do, but it seems like they just do their thing. They run the Continentals, and just kind of interesting. And that's when we learned, like Gianna, who is Santino's sister. She's got this seat on the high table, and that's kind of a big thing apparently. I guess they're the people that run the show.
Yeah.
And that's why Santino's kind of mad, because he's like, that's no fair. My sister, she got it over me. And John Wick's got to go take her out, because basically that's, like we said, you can't refuse a mark.
Right.
And to me, this whole like 40 minutes in between the first part and the part where he goes after Gianna is kind of just superfluous. How do you feel about this section? Do you think it's necessary, or do you think they could have streamlined it a little bit?
You know, I'm with you, man. I really feel like that it's almost like they felt they had to kind of like make the stakes of what John Wick has to do with bigger in this one. Because like I said, in the first one, it's just a matter of, you know, getting the car and chasing those guys. But then you learn all this backstory and how this higher organization that they really didn't allude to in the first one. Like I said, they didn't really go into what this organization's all about. So when you get into this, I mean, it goes from like nothing to like this big thing. And I don't hate it. I think it's interesting. I think it's a compelling thing. I mean, you've seen it in other films. So I'm good with it for the most part, but it almost does seem to be a little bit too complicated, I guess is the best way to put it.
I don't think it's complicated.
Maybe not
I think you could streamline it a little bit.
Gotcha, yeah.
It seems like it drags just a tad.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're trying to create atmosphere. They're trying to make you feel like you're part of this world. And that is sort of the magic of John Wick. But to me, the biggest magic is the cool action sequences.
Right, of course.
So I want to get to those sooner than later before I get too sleepy or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so John Wick shows up, kill Gianna, and this is, to me, is where the movie takes off. Is just their little exchange. The actress, she's awesome, but just the way it's shot, and that's the big thing I want to bring up here is Stileski, the director, Chad Stileski. He totally brings it, and you can see like he leveled up big time between part 1 and part 2.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I really think that's the biggest difference to me between the first and the second one is just how much bigger everything was. I mean, even the music is bigger. I mean, it's just a bigger deal. And sometimes that can be a little much, but I really don't think so. I really think that they did a good job of elevating the stakes, of introducing characters that, and again, this is all news, so we can't really say who these people are, and we're all finding out at the same time. And I think they do a really good job of explaining who they are, showing the relationship between Gianna and the turd, I'll call him. I think they do a really good job of kind of explaining to the audience who they are, what they're about, what this organization does, and while not giving too much away, you're still a little bit in the dark.
Yeah, I mean, they sprinkle it in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was saying, this is, to me, I mean, yeah, I noticed earlier in the film, I said it, that first action sequence, you noticed there was a level up happening. But to me, it's this scene where Gianna kills herself, and just how that's shot, and then just the beginning of this action sequence at this, like the mini clubs in the John Wick world is just a huge place.
Yeah.
And it's like the coolest club you could possibly imagine. And just the set design of this film, and especially part 3, it really takes off. But I think the thing that brings it all together, I already said Stileski. Like, he's great at doing this action sequence, this sort of ballet thing. And in this one, they vary up the action sequences a lot more, I think, than they do in the first one, as far as the choreography, but also just little rules they throw in there. Like, there's the scene where John Wick and the concierge have to basically go get better ammo because the guys are wearing insane body armor. Yeah. And just that little things like that add variety to the action. But to me, the thing that when I think about this series and sort of it makes me want to come back to it always is the visuals. And I've learned more about this guy now. Dan Lawson, who's the director of photography for this film and for part 3 and 4, he's just like the best now. Like he hooked up with Guillermo del Toro. He's his go-to guy. Yeah. I mean, his movies just look awesome. What do you think, dude?
Oh, I love the look. I mean, like you said, It just, I mean, to go from the first one to the second one, and I know I keep going back and forth, but that's the thing. Like, some of the shots of the city just are breathtaking. So I agree with that 100%, man.
Yeah, it's the shots, but it's a combination of that, the lighting,
That too.
the set design,
Yeah, and the music.
It's just, and the music, it brings it all together. It's just a great thing. That's why I love that bath scene where she, spoiler, like we said earlier, Gianna kills herself, and John Wick still has to make it look like he killed her. Adds insult to injury there, but then he gets blamed for everything. And now everybody wants to kill him. All of Gianna's people do.
Yep.
And then to make things worse, just to show that he's a turd, Santino puts a hit out on John Wick. So the rest of the movie is just basically this guy running from everybody.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. I mean, I love it in that little tunnel sequence how he planned everything out beforehand. He's like, I'm going to lay this gun here. I'm going to put that there. You see that a lot in like cool action movies. I just got done watching A Better Tomorrow recently, and Chow Yun-fat did the same thing. He's like, I'm going to put a gun in this flower pot so that if somebody shoots me, I'm going to have a gun here to to start unloading on them. So I like that pick. I like to see that John Wick's a guy that plans things out, and he's not just flying by the seat of his pants.
No, this guy is definitely intelligent. He's obviously tough. He does have a reputation that is explained in the first one, and then it spills over, but yet he gets it pretty good. You know, he's not invincible, he's not Superman, he's not, bulletproof or anything like that. So he can take a beating, unfortunately, but I love the characters that you meet in this film, and one of my favorites is Lawrence Fishburne's The Bowery King. What do you think of him, man?
I mean, he's great. And immediately when you see Keanu and Larry Fishburne together, you immediately think of The Matrix.
Of
And you're
course.
These guys just have great chemistry with each other.
Definitely.
And you can tell he's having a lot of fun with this role.
Oh, yeah.
That he's like a man who's the king of his little part, because I heard this is the way the filmmakers looked at it. It was like, okay, so the Continental's like your 5-star hotel.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, there has to be a Motel 6 as well. And that's what these guys are running, these little bums on the side of the streets that could also be assassins.
Yep.
And the King of New York, Lawrence Fishburne, he's head of them all, the Bowery King. And he's great. I could tell you, once again, he had a lot of fun with this, especially when he gives that line, "Give this man a gun!"
Yep.
And just, it's great. And he adds a lot of energy to it when the film probably could have just like slowed down a lot.
Right.
So he's a great added element here.
Yeah, I agree. I think he is one of those that, it could be a little bit cartoony, but I think in a good way, if that makes any sense. I think he's kind of, I don't want to say like the comic relief or anything like that, but he is definitely a interesting character, and you really aren't sure about him because he's kind of shady in his own right. But his performance, Lawrence Fishburne's performance, is just amazing. And you mentioned the whole Matrix thing, and you can tell they have chemistry. You can tell that they've worked together, and they just do so well. Like I said, one of my favorite parts of this whole film.
Yeah, it just adds another layer to what we have. The world gets bigger.
Yep.
And I thought we were going to get into it a second ago, but I guess now's the best time to get into it.
Sure.
So Keanu, his performance, I think it does change a little bit in parts 2 and 3 than it did in part 1.
Agreed.
I think he's just more comfortable in the role, and I think he gets better at the action as the film goes on. I think his like sort of gun handling in the first one was really good, but he gets better at the hand-to-hand and just all the martial arts in the second and third. And I think the big thing is, like you said, he could take a beating, and we see that on his character. Like, you feel like this guy is getting continuously hurt throughout the film. His pace is kind of slowing down. It's like harder to walk around.
Yeah.
And that's why I always think of these John Wick films is it's almost like he's going through like a marathon, a gauntlet of sorts,
Right.
physically. And then at the end of the movie, it's kind of like, okay, he made it through this time. And I think Keanu kind of embodies that big time, that you can tell this guy, and I guess because he's a little bit older in all these films. I mean, you forget this guy's in his 50s and almost 60.
Yeah.
And doing all this stuff. But I just think it's cool that this guy's doing a lot of his own stunts. I don't think he does every stunt.
Right.
But really cool seeing Keanu perform this one.
Well, I think if you go back to the first one, and I know I keep referencing, but what is the first shot? He dumps himself out of his car, and he's like bleeding, and he's watching his wife. So you're already thinking, okay, this guy is trouble. But they spend the whole first film talking about John Wick as opposed to John Wick actually doing a lot of talking. So I thought that was a very interesting take, and that he does more of his own talking in the second one. But I love the fact that everybody talks about him pretty reverential, you know, and that he is the boogeyman and Baba Yaga. I love all that. But nobody could play this role but Keanu Reeves. I just cannot imagine anybody else being John Wick other than Keanu, because it's his role and it's his thing. And while he doesn't say a lot necessarily, he still looks good for, would you say 60s he is now? I mean, the fact that he's doing as much as he is in these films, and you know, it gets more and more taxing as this series goes on, is extremely impressive.
Yeah, it's very physical performance, and like you said, he says less throughout the films. It seems like it's the whole Clint Eastwood way of acting, where I just gotta say the things that matter, and the rest of it's done with just my mannerism and my body sort of movements. And that's really cool to watch. And I think he gets more comfortable, as I said, but also the character seems like it is fleshed out more. It feels like in the first one, he's just driven by revenge, and that's it. And in part two, we get that a little bit toward the end, but it seems like he has more agency. He seems like, what am I fighting for? I'm fighting to get my life, just to live the way I want to live. I don't want these people, these high table, these other people deciding my life. And I think that's a really cool thing as far as just how they wrote that into the character and sort of his arc of what he wants to do. He just wants to get back to living his life, and he's going to go with their hell to do it.
You know, one of the things, and I think they do a really good job of showing this and explaining this, one of the things that you feel sorry for the character is that he literally has nothing. I mean, his wife's died, he watched his first dog get killed. He is literally all alone and just trying to get a little bit of revenge on the people that hurt him. So he is basically this lone wolf. Now, he does meet people like Lawrence Fishburne's character and a couple others, you know, throughout that becomes sort of a friend, I guess, or a confident, you know, kind of thing. But it's really just him. So he's kind of a tragic character that you really wouldn't want to be, you know? And just to see him have to fight through all of that is pretty impressive. And like I said, I really don't think anybody could have explained that and showed that better than what Keanu does, because like I said, he doesn't say a whole lot, but you can just tell the look of his eyes, and he is tortured. He's a tortured soul, as they say. And I think that's a really interesting part of the character, and very relatable, because you know, we all go through struggles, we all go through things, and he's just like, he is fighting to stay, you know, above water.
Definitely. He's pushing on. I guess that's the big thing. He's a survivor. He gets hit by cars. He gets shot. It doesn't matter. He's going to keep going.
Exactly.
He just patches himself up. And the part I want to talk about, I noticed in part 3, is turns out John Wick can do all this because he's basically on drugs the whole time. He takes all those painkillers and that uppers, and like that's kind of like his superpower. It's like he takes that and then he's like, okay, I can take some more abuse now. Let's go fight. And
like Popeye getting his
it's an interesting character. Yeah, he's an interesting character because, like I said, he wants to get back to that life. But at the same time, it's almost like you were saying, he's tragic. Can he go back to that life? Like, he's killed so many people, and that killing is such a part of who he is. It's hard to think of him just settling down. It feels like, yes, he wants to live that life, but he also kind of craves this. He kind of relishes what he's doing, and at least in the second one, I think, or the first one. Third one, it seems like he's kind of tired of it at that point. He's like, come on, I'm just done with this, guys.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, he's basically superhuman. He can do everything.
Right.
Like, I love it how the dog just kind of like recognizes him instantly as a master.
Yep.
He just starts telling this dog, just stay here, I'll be right back. The first day they meet each other. And he just basically
dog that could do that. No way.
Yeah. Well, it's because John Wick's that cool. He can
That's
just
true.
train his dog.
Yeah.
The first sentence he says to this dog, he trains it, basically. And that's kind of the thing. Yes, we see him get abuse, but I don't think he's really challenged in this one. Because I think they were trying to set Common's character, Cassian, as like sort of his big foe. I don't think they do a good job with that. What do you think about Common?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I kind of agree with you. I just don't think he works very well, personally.
Yeah, I think he's a good actor in this. I mean, he's not having to do too much.
He's not the worst character in the world, but it just is kind of like, okay, what's his deal? I mean, I think I like John Leguizamo's character more than this guy, apparently.
Yeah, well, totally different ends of the spectrum.
I know.
But Cassian's supposed to be like this John Wick equal,
Yeah.
if you will. Like, he was protecting Gianna, he comes after John Wick and everything. Yeah, I think John Wick's like, I view as a friend, sort of, or at least we're in the same line of work, so there's respect there. That's why they have that drink in the Continental together. It's pretty cool.
Right.
At the same time, it doesn't seem like they're on the same playing field. It seems like this is like Michael Jordan going against, I don't know, just some random Lonzo Ball or something.
Yeah.
It's not a fair fight.
No.
And that's why, like, I like it. They're trying to set him up as this equal foe, and I like that little exchange they have where they're basically shooting at each other while not trying to draw much attention to each other. And then I like their fight on the train, but at the same time, I don't feel like John Wick's in any danger in that fight.
Right. I think if you go back to John Wick Chapter 1 and you talk about Vigo, I think Vigo is kind of in the same boat where, yeah, they're rivals, but there's no way Vigo is going to, take down John Wick. And I think it's the same for this character. I think that it's, and I love Vigo. I think Vigo is a great character, by the way, even though we're not talking about him again. But Common, I think it's a little bit more of a match, maybe. But still, come on. He's not going to take down John Wick. There's no way.
Yeah, maybe if they would have put a little more of him in there, we got to see what he could do. Because obviously John Wick respects him, and like that whole thing about I'm not going to pull the knife out is like supposed to be like a common sign of respect or something.
Right.
Meanwhile, that other girl, he does not do the same thing for her later on, the deaf lady. But it's been a long time on Wick 2, and it just keeps building and building. My favorite part of the whole movie is whenever Santino opens up that whole bounty on him the first time. He's basically fighting for his life. Like, anybody could be assassin in the city. This random person playing the violin starts fighting him.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're watching a good movie. Just where the rules just change on the instant, and you're just rolling with it like we do in this one.
Yeah, and also, same with him, man. Like, he's a great character in this, Santino. Very good villain, maybe a little cartoony at times, but I really feel like I liked it a lot. I just thought he was hilarious. Obviously not a good foe for John Wick, and he's not going to take down John Wick himself. That's why he puts the contract out, because he's not going to kill John Wick, but he's going to try his best to get somebody to. And I think he's a good character to hate. I think you're supposed to hate him. I think you're supposed to be like, this piece of crap.
Yeah, I mean, he's different. Like you said, he's not going to do it himself.
Nope.
He's going to pay somebody to do it. Same thing, he got John Wick to go kill his sister for him. It's like, I'm not going to get my hands dirty. You do it for me.
Exactly.
And that just kind of shows you who he is. He's kind of a person that hides behind others a little bit, and just sends a whole slew of people after John Wick. And to me, that last action sequence is really cool. I love that whole art. I guess you call it art fixture place or the art museum.
Yep.
Like, just designing that set is just amazing, and they outdo themselves again in part 3. But that's really the standout action sequence for me is that whole part in the art museum.
Yep.
And just the way that was shot, the way it's choreographed, it's almost like a dance. And just like I said in part 1, it's like violence with beauty.
I think if somebody were to ask me that has not seen these films, what makes the John Wick films worth watching, as good as the stories are and as good as the characters are, it's the action scenes. Let's just be honest. I really feel like these are like you said, dances and well choreographed, well shot, well lit, the music, everything that goes into these scenes is given a lot of attention. I mean, just the smallest details that make these scenes, but especially this one that you're talking about, you're just cheering the whole time. You're just like, wow, this is awesome. You know, it's rough and it's edgy a little bit, but it's just cool.
Mm-hmm. And it's really like, if you look at it any different way, like the filmmaking behind the scenes, like, you get to think all this is handheld. A lot of it is.
Right.
And if you've ever had a camera in your hands,
Yeah.
you're walking sideways, walking backwards, all
Yeah.
that stuff. I mean, this is work. This
Props to
is
the
some
camera.
good handling of cameras. I did a little bit with the films that I've made with my students, and it's definitely different when you have to hold this steady while you're basically moving around, walking backwards, skipping around and stuff. It's a workout, and it's a lot of fun, and that's really cool to think about as they're shooting these action sequences. And once again, Stileski has a lot to do that because he was a stunt man, so I'm sure he spent a lot of years thinking, okay, if I were shooting this, how would I do it? Or he'd ask directors a lot of questions and stuff, because I mean, this guy was doing stuff back in the 90s, and he's been doing it since. And I think that's really cool. Like, he's made for John Wick, and he definitely brings it with all his stuff in this one.
Right. But getting back to the story and kind of wrapping up to where we get to the third movie, what do you think about the story and where it goes from the first one to the second one? And then you have this contract, and we've been talking about the action, but what do you think about this plot and where John Wick goes from here, and you know what he has to deal with in this film? You feel like it's a step up as far as from the first one, or what's your thoughts on it?
That's the thing that kind of, I still wrap my mind around this one.
Sure.
I think there's so much of this one that kind of levels up, like we've been saying over and over. The direction gets better, the music gets better, all et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, the way it ends, how like we basically have this awesome action sequence, and then we have the big finale. He just goes into the Continental and shoots Santino, and that's it. It's very sort of anticlimactic. Right. But the thing is, though, it still sets up a great thing for the third one. Because you learn that John Wick's going to be excommunicado now for what he's done, and that basically everybody's after him. And I love that, like I said, killing Santino's sort of anticlimactic. But this little part where he meets Winston up in Central Park, and Winston's just like, "Can't help you, man. You're on your own. No privileges, man." And then as he's leaving the park with his dog, he sees all these people just getting that message on their phones. And apparently every single person in New York is an assassin. And he's just got to get out of there. It's a great setup for the third one.
Oh, yeah. I agree. And undoubtedly, you know, this world is getting bigger. As we've seen now, everybody's an assassin. And the world gets even bigger in the third one. And I don't know if we want to jump into it at the moment. But now we've got a spin-off film coming out. So we're getting even more to the world. Do you fear at all that this world gets too big, or do you think that's not possible?
Well, I think it's possible, but the studios have to realize this is not just your standard IP. That the reason why it succeeds is not because of great characters and all that stuff for the world. It's because of Keanu Reeves and Chad Stileski. Like, if you don't have those two ingredients, it's going to be really tough. And I think you can build stories around it. Like, I know Ana Armas is in Ballerina, and I love her. I think she's a perfect person for this. But I think, and I've already heard that basically Stileski had to come in and basically redo all the action, do tons of reshoots, because it was not working. And that's the thing is, if you don't have his imprint on it, I don't think it works. And I'll get into that more when we do talk about part 3, because it doesn't look like we're going to squeeze it in today.
That's fine. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, like, you know, you see all these things like Star Wars and even the Marvel things that the world just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you often wonder, does it ever get too big? Is there ever just too much going on? And I think one of the advantages of this series was the fact that it was brand new. It wasn't based on anything. It was compared to some stuff, but it was its own thing coming out of the gate. And now we're 4 movies in, and basically 5 with the Ballerina coming out, and
apparently a TV show too.
And you know what? I'm a fan of this series, so I will watch every single thing. There's no doubt in my mind that I will definitely watch every single thing that comes out. But is it always going to live up to what, especially these first few John Wick films did? I mean, and that's the thing, and I guess that's the gamble with anything that you do, you know. But man, it's just like, this is one of those things that I thought was going to be overhyped, and it was not at all. It's good as advertised, at least in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I think sometimes things just work out.
Yeah.
That all the right people get on board, and a studio's like, hey, we'll let you guys do it. And it's worked out well, and I think it's just because a lot of creatives coming together, and they all have a vision, they want to accomplish it. They're not just cashing in for a paycheck. And that's what I think separates this from a lot of that stuff that you mentioned, like Marvel and so forth.
Yeah.
Seems like everybody just wants to make an awesome film, and that's awesome. And one thing that kind of backs it up, and I guess we'll talk about it more in part 3, is stuntmen. They're just like the undersold heroes of this film.
Yeah.
And those guys putting their bodies on the line and getting beat up and hurt
No doubt.
just to make a cool movie.
Yep.
That's got to be something worth commending. So my hands definitely, I clap for
Agreed.
the big names, the guys that are top billed, but the stuntmen, I mean, if you don't have them in this film, you don't have anything.
And I'm sure you feel the same way. If I sound like a John Wick fanboy, then I guess that's what I am. I mean, I have no qualms in being called that, because, again, and I had my doubts, guys. Let me just be honest with you. Before I even saw the first one, did you see the first one before me? I'm trying to remember, man. If I told you about
No, you watched it before I did.
which is usually the other way around. But I remember thinking when I watched that first movie, I think I called you and I was like, dude, this is as great as advertised. It was great character, great story, great world, and it just gets better and better every time you watch. So I'm really excited about The Ballerina. I really hope that it lives up to what these films have done, because I really think these are some special, just almost like films they don't make anymore, you know? Just good classic action films with interesting characters, interesting villains, and, you know,
Great stunts.
great stunts, exactly. So, you know, if I'm going to be called a John Wick fanboy, then more the merrier. I'm good with that.
Yep. Definitely a lot to dissect here, and that's why we're going to have to stretch this out to a third episode for John Wick 3. But we thank you guys for listening in and just giving us the time of day and subscribing and all that good stuff. Any last words before we head on, Superfosh?
Just want to thank you guys as well, and just really appreciate you guys listening to us. Make sure you share this with your friends and let them know if they want to be part of the Supercast family. And stay tuned for our next episode for John Wick 3. So for Stevesy, I'm the Superfosh. We'll see you guys next time on the Supercast.